Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm glad to be back with you here today. This is going to be your astro weather for the week of November 23rd through the 30th, 2025. Now, major headlines this week. Your ex is calling. We're going to see Mercury Retrograde Conjunct Venus in Scorpio. We're going to talk all about what that means and how to prepare for that transit and all the other things that are taking place this week. If you guys like my content and you want to see more of it, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. While you're here, give me a thumbs up and consider liking and sharing this video. And let me know what Mercury retrograde moment you're experiencing this week in the comments. Where are these conjunctions and aspects or oppositions taking place in your chart? I'd love to hear your stories. Now, obviously we're coming into Thanksgiving. That means you guys are getting bombarded with all of your holiday sales, but I have to be one of the people who's letting you know what my sale is. So if you don't already subscribe to my newsletter, head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com so you can get all of that info. I'm not going to spam you. You're just going to get the information regarding what our sales are this year. But we always do our biggest sale of the year pretty much between Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday. But by the time you guys are seeing this, this sale is already live. So it's going to be continuing until December 1st, which will be Monday. Now, the sales are basically all of my courses. They're heavily discounted, but there's way more than that this year. I have taken a bit of a hiatus from teaching my courses. I've been super busy, obviously working on the channel, but I'm back. So for the first time in 2 years, starting in January of 2026, I'm going to be issuing my Astrology 301 course. This is the Mastering Astrology. So I'm offering an early bird discount. If you would like to register for my class, it's going to be a package price of $399. It's $200 off, and the sale is only going to be lasting until the 1st, and then the price is going to be going up incrementally. So you want to lock in that deal, and we're only going to be taking about 40 students for that course. Check out my website if you want to see more information on the outline. But if you've taken my Astro 101 or 201, this is the next step for advanced astrology and getting started with starting your own practice. Now, we're also doing astrology bundles, so tons of savings, over $400 in savings. If you want to buy Astrology 101, you can get Astrology 201 half off. So if you're somebody who is wanting to learn astrology or you're wanting to gift this to someone, awesome way to be able to learn how to master reading a natal chart and also using my techniques for looking at transits. It's what I use basically every time we do a Sunday astro weather. We're also offering a tarot and astrology bundle, so you can get Astro 101 with tarot half off, or you can buy Astro 201 and you can get tarot half off. And we're offering one big cosmic bundle, which you can get Astro 101, 201, and if you get the first two courses, you're gonna get my tarot course for free. We're also offering lots of goodies when it comes to calendars. We're gonna be doing the personal transit calendar, where if you pay $25 and you get your astro transits that you put right into your computer or your Apple iCal, we're going to give you 6 months free. So that'll be 18 months total for the price of 1 year. And because Saturn's going to be coming back into Aries at the beginning of the year, I'm offering 50% off of my Saturn and Aries webinar. It's going to give you lots of insight, especially if you're going through your Saturn return, in how to prepare, how to navigate, and to-do lists to master this transit like a champ. I'm also offering 50% off my relationship astrology courses, and we're also doing $5 off my digital ritual calendars. It is the digital version of the print version, which is beautiful. If you guys have not seen these are not on sale, but you can pick up the digital price on sale if you like, or you can order this in full print form for Christmas. And we're officially down to 8 tarot decks left of my Sword in the Rose tarot. So it's almost sold out. If you want to get it, you want to order this before December 5th so you can get it in time for Christmas. But likely by the end of November, these are going to be gone. So check out all of that and more. I've also got some surprise goodies that I'm hoping to put out somewhere around Cyber Monday. Getting ready to list my 2026 predictions for the 12 rising signs. It's going to be instant audio downloads to navigate next year. So lots of goodies are going to be out this week. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Definitely let me know. And obviously we're here to talk about the astrology for the week ahead. So first of all, if you're new here, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. And if you guys are back or part of my Sunday crew, thanks for joining me. This week is going to be a doozy. Now we are transitioning from the deep, transformative, kind of watery energy of Scorpio into the fiery, adventurous Aries, energy of Sagittarius. And the Mercury retrograde's wrapping up this week. We're going to see finally Mercury's going direct. And we're reviewing secrets. There could be some bombshell revelations, news, or things that are kind of coming to the surface. This could also include intimate conversations and power dynamics that are coming up one last time, and that's really to get some clarity. I'm expecting major revelations this week, emotional closures, and a growing sense of optimism as the sun heads through the sign of Sagittarius, obviously bringing some brighter energies as we get into December 2025. Now, the weekly vibe is a little intense. We're still doing a lot of emotional review, and there is going to be some kind of silver linings, I think, for emerging hope and optimism. The first half of the week is going to feel very heavy with lots of Scorpio energy, and we're working through this retrograde where there's old wounds, there's old secrets, and passionate reconnections that might be surfacing under Mercury retrograde in conjunction to Venus in Scorpio. Now, by the end's week, we're going to see Sagittarius energy is going to be lighting up the skies. I think it's bringing a sense of relief for many of us, and also adventure and some sense of renewed faith. Now, we will see a continuation of these water trines this week, and that may soften things for some of us, really helping us nurture, focus on healing and emotional security, while Mars in Sagittarius is coming into a square with the North and South node, pushing us to align our actions with a sense of destiny. So the key transits that we're going to be covering this week will be the Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. Obviously, it is continuing, and it is going to be really highlighting Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus. That's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. That'll be the strongest from November 24th through the 25th. Now, I predict this is all about deep magnetic conversations about love, money, and our personal desires. There's lots of potential for passionate reconnections this week or uncovering hidden truth. Now, Venus in Scorpio will make a trine to Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, as well as Saturn in Pisces, and this is actually amazing. Even though we see Jupiter and Saturn are retrograde, this is really clear that it's going to be bringing emotional abundance, really focusing on having better boundaries, especially when it comes to our emotions, being compassionate, and healing family or financial matters. Now, Mercury goes direct on the 29th in Scorpio. That means the Mercury retrograde's over, and that will likely bring up some clarity. It'll be emerging in a way where we're kind of coming out of the fog, and there could be major revelations that are kind of coming up for us. But we will start to kind of feel that shadow that's going to be lingering as Mercury is still waking up, going through the degrees which it retrograded through until December 15th. So I think this Mercury retrograde is going to kind of kick on the back end. That's just me. We will also see a pretty gnarly Venus in opposition to Uranus and Taurus. Okay, it'll happen at 29 degrees. It'll be an anaretic degree. And this will happen on November 27th. So this is going to be highlighting the tension between, obviously, sudden shifts in relationships, right, with Venus, and values and security. And obviously, it's going to be making an opposition to Uranus. So that can obviously stir up some major issues revolving around security, some plot twists in partnerships, in values and feelings, and just big shocks and surprises. So be mindful of your spending and your expenses this week. We will also see the first quarter moon that's going to be taking place in Pisces. So this is coming out of the most recent Scorpio new moon. We'll see the moon in Pisces squaring the sun in Sagittarius. That'll be taking place on the 27th. And this basically is going to be bringing up some kind of tension between dreams and reality. Obviously, action is required under the first quarter square, and it's really going to be about manifesting our visions. And then finally, we also see Mars and Sagittarius coming into a square with the North and South nodes. This is taking place this Sunday, so as the time that you guys are watching this for the better part of the next 2 days, there is this karmic push to really focus on adventure, be moving boldly out in the world, but also there is some triggers that might come up that are about impulsive detours, so watch for that. We'll go through all of the transits, and I'm going to tell you guys what I think about the Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in Scorpio for the 12 rising signs if you stay tuned till the end of the video. All right, so basically we're going to dive deep now into Mercury conjunct Venus in Scorpio. If you guys are watching this, it's going to be exact right around the 24th and the 25th of November this week. And it will be retrograde conjunct Venus around 22 or 23 degrees of Scorpio. So if you have anything from basically 21, 22, 23 degrees, this is where you really need to be paying attention because the retrograde is going to be pretty prominent for you. This will also be impacting a lot of different signs. Obviously, Mercury is associated with Virgo and Gemini. So this will be a transit that's impacting you. Your chart ruler is retrograding conjunct a benefic planet, okay? Even though Venus in Scorpio can be a little prickly, it might be more, I think, love or money related for you guys. We're also going to see for those of you who are ruled by Venus, so my Taurus and my Libra risings, this is really prominent for you guys as there is some kind of change or new information or insight that's coming up for you this week. And my Scorpio risings, obviously, because you guys are seeing this conjunction in the midst of a Mercury retrograde in your sign. So if you have angles or anything that are around that 21 to 23 degrees of the fixed signs, so obviously Scorpio, but also Taurus, Leo, and my Aquarius placements, you guys will be feeling this pretty intensely as well. So when we think about what's been going on for the better part of the last couple of weeks, Mercury's been retrograde. It started in Sagittarius, which is kind of bright, vivid, optimistic, and it retrograded in conjunction to Mars. So there was some kind of knee-jerk reactions. Now planets are moving retrograde, specifically Mercury, through Scorpio, and we're going to see this conjunction. So in a nutshell, when we see this retrograde in Scorpio, we're obviously reviewing hidden truth because Scorpio represents what's hidden beneath the surface. That means that there is a reevaluation of truths, secrets, power dynamics when it comes to communication. Mercury deals with business, travel, gadgets, anything regarding personal information in this sign. And it's pretty common when we see a Mercury retrograde for there to be misunderstandings. So misunderstandings in Scorpio topics like intimate matters. There can be a theme this week of seeing that there is resurfacing exes, or hearing from exes, or feeling like people are watching your stories or kind of checking in on you. We can also notice that there can be a lot more obsessive thoughts that are coming up, and a very kind of investigative mindset in the sign of Scorpio. Now, this also means that some signs have been dealing with delays when it comes to shared finances. We can see that there can be some breakthroughs in therapy because Scorpio is a psychological sign. And obviously themes of digging into the past and past shadows are likely going to come up. So Scorpio is a sign that is ruled by Mars as well as Pluto. So it doesn't just deal with, intimacy and shared resources. It's also about transformation. It's about depth. This is a sign that deals with power and control, and it brings up themes of endings and beginnings, as well as anything connected to vulnerability, sexuality, and the occult. So as we see Mercury retrograde coming into conjunction with Venus, we are blending the mind, right, Mercury, with the heart, Venus. And we know that Venus does not do entirely too well in Scorpio. It's in its opposite sign. So it is, I think, a little bit more likely to feel scorned, to be afraid of opening up. It can also be about exposing, secrets and conversations and information and feeling vulnerable. And this is really intense waters when we're dealing with Scorpio. So yes, the positive is that maybe there's more passionate, seductive conversation. Some signs might see that. We might also find that this is about reevaluating or revising something when it comes to relationship communication. That might mean that we are revisiting past lovers or relationships, looking over old text messages, old love letters. It can also mean that we are reevaluating our values. It can be charming but probing, and obviously words will really reveal some of our vulnerabilities this week. Now, some of you guys might like it. You might feel like it's very magnetic. It can be about healing jealous or possessive tendencies and having intense conversations that lead to a breakthrough. And it's really about purging all of the insecurities, getting them out in the open, gaining clarity on who and what we want. So the themes of this transit, you guys will find, is going to be about deep emotional honesty. I think that's the key here. And that could be honesty when it comes to budgeting, finance, expenses. It could also mean that we're really, kind of like reconciling our desires with reality. And this is about really alchemizing our pain into beauty, and watch for opportunities for more seductive communication that can really open us up and transform relationships. Now, what I like about this is that there is a continuation from last week. We are seeing planets in the late degrees of Scorpio that's still trining Jupiter in Cancer, so that brings big emotions and kind of reevaluating the past. We are also seeing trines to Saturn, which is helping us kind of gain clarity and create better boundaries moving forward. So I think that this is going to be positive, where in a way it's forming supportive energies in the skies. We're going to see that this grand water trine influence is really giving us more structured emotional, kind of habits. Maybe it's focusing on healing. It can also mean that it's bringing, maturity in. It's allowing us to practice better empathy and compassion for other people, including ourselves. And this allows us to really expand on the topics of family or home or what security feels like. It can also really soften the intensity of the Scorpio energy with forgiveness and better boundaries. So something I've been thinking about is looking at this conjunction is the connection with the South Node, and that the South Node is actually ruled by Mercury. So the South Node is going to be kind of pulsating with themes of releasing, or things that are breaking down, or what's not healthy, or what's not organized, or what isn't working. Yes, for some of us, it's going to be scrambling, trying to figure out, okay, I'm pivoting, my job is changing, or there's layoffs, or maybe there is some change going on with my health or my habits. How am I dealing with that issue? How am I detoxing, clearing, cleansing the body and the mind? But I think it can also mean that we're needing to really look at things this week and go, okay, it's time to really release anything that we're overanalyzing. Maybe it can be that we're, focusing too much on trying to be perfect. Maybe there is really critical communication patterns that are kind of coming up that is hindering our relationships or hindering our finances. And this is about letting go of those kind of nitpicky details to really embrace the depth of Scorpio's kind of bigger picture transformation. Now, Mars is the dispositor of this conjunction in Scorpio, and Mars is currently in Sagittarius, forming a square early in the week with the North and the South Node. So as Mars is kind of leading the way in a fiery, optimistic fire sign, it is, I think, adding a little bit more optimism. Maybe it's pushing for bold truth-telling. This can also be about trying to be more optimistic and adventurous when it comes to our relationships or financial pursuits. But like I said, that Mars square the nodes is warning against scattered energy and maybe being argumentative or being combative and not looking at the bigger picture. That's not something that Sagittarius is so great in doing when we see planets that square the nodes. I think that for me, just to kind of reflect on some of these transits, I mean, even in spite of the trines to Saturn and Jupiter, you would think that it would be really positive. I don't really feel like it's been that positive personally. I've recognized that part of the trines have been manifesting as this buildup of emotions and things that need to be dealt with and stuff that needs to be talked about. And I also recognize that the silver lining, I think, is, okay, what did we learn from this situation? What did we learn from letting things fester, not talking about it, not, being vulnerable or kind of discussing our fears or kind of dealing with things that have been shoved in the closet? So my advice for you guys is to watch how this manifests for you this week. I think that, for some of you guys, Mercury is the phone, Venus is the ex, the retrograde is somebody coming back. And it can mean that something comes back from the past, someone comes back from the past, or, maybe somebody comes back with a deep apology or a confession. It could also mean that there is a sense of us realizing that obsessing over the past or getting jealous over things that happened in the past or not healing or letting things go could quite literally be mentally toxic for us. And if we keep focusing on what happened in the past, we can't actually get up and go and move forward. For some of us, it might mean that there is some hidden secrets coming up in spending and expenses. So looking at joint accounts, what's going on with credit cards, where money is going, where it's being invested, where it's like vanishing. And for others, it can mean that there are kind of secretive conversations or financial handlings that are going on behind closed doors. I do think the positive is that some of us might actually feel like we have some psychological breakthroughs and we realize that, whatever is difficult that's kind of coming up right now, it's painful, but it's coming up for us to really kind of tie up those loose ends and send them packing. So if you're somebody who's working with, let's say, a therapist or a healer, or you're doing any kind of shadow work practices, you might feel that there can be breakthroughs this week, that there can be sessions that feel faded. I also feel like it does lend a lot of energy to artistic inspiration that can come from a deep sense of sadness or sorrow or working through some of the shadows. Just watch for the jealousy vibes, okay? Watch for things to shift from being jealous to potentially being passionate. And there's lots of energy in the sky this week for makeups or breakups. Now, what you want to watch for is just obsessive thinking. And I think Mercury, Venus can mean what I don't have, what I lost, who scorned me, what I could have, would have, should have done. It could also mean that there's obsessive communication tendencies or email tendencies. It could mean there's also a tendency to want to be more private or secretive when it comes to our finances or our relationships. And that can lead to power struggles that can be happening in relationships. We may also hear something about technology glitches around intimate kind of data or information. So think of like data breaches, social security numbers, credit card breaches, passwords that are getting out, things that are getting hacked. I was just seeing recently, I think it's going through WhatsApp right now, they were saying that there is some kind of bug, or there is some kind of virus that's, I guess, connected to WhatsApp that's impacting people who are communicating in certain countries. And that could be about releasing or some kind of, personal data that's coming up, right? So that could be, I guess, a reflection of this. There's also been lots of stuff that I've been seeing on Twitter that's been about talking about new AI training that's connected to Google. So if you guys haven't seen that, you should check it out. They're talking about how if you do not opt out of the AI training, pretty much all of your communications are no longer going to be private via email. You have to go and shut it down, and they're going to be using your back and forth personal communications to start training AI data models and to see how we communicate and how we kind of go back and forth. Not a lot of people know that. I didn't know that, and I was shocked. They're saying the same thing about WhatsApp. They're saying the same thing about Instagram messages. They're saying the same thing about Facebook messages. That basically, I think the date is from mid-December forward. In the future, employers or anybody can purchase private data information, and potentially things that you have said privately in messages, things that you have posted on social media can potentially be purchased and can come up, let's say at a job interview. So it can mean your political perspectives, your views on, what's going on in the world, some of your personal conversations, all of that sensitive data, very Mercury, Venus, including your relationship stuff, anything connected to just your personal one-on-one interactions could be up for grabs in the future. So it might be worth kind of thinking about, kind of looking into that. And a lot of this is secretive because Mercury is retrograde, and also it's in Scorpio, which is good at keeping secrets. And a lot of this information is also connected to the trine to Saturn and Neptune that's saying, well, we don't really know how we're going to use it. It hasn't been defined in the future. And it's definitely giving some insight into, our kind of emotions and our home and family kind of dynamics and relationships. So I think that's point blank with a lot of the astrology that's going on this week. I'll follow up with you guys if I get any more information about that. If you have anything, post about it, because I love to hear about it, but it's going on. All right, so I think the best way to work with this transit, number one, is you can't ignore your emotions this week. There may be painful conversations from the past that come up. There may be uncomfortable things we have to discuss. We may have to kind of come clean about something. We may have to confront something. And there may be things that we've been ignoring that finally need to be dealt with, especially if we feel like something doesn't feel right or something is kind of out of sorts in a relationship or in a financial matter. I would also really recommend people paying attention to their dreams, paying attention to signs and omens, and doing a little bit of journaling, because I think that can be really beneficial. I also feel like a lot of this is about having gentle but honest talks with others, including ourselves, and maybe revisiting creative projects, as well as practicing some kind of shadow work. I would be very careful in any financial contracts this week. I would not be making any moves quite yet. I'd be waiting maybe until as we're getting into, December when Mercury's direct and it's trining Saturn again. So we're going to see some better communication transits in about a week's time. So even though Mercury is going to go direct, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the best time to make some of these moves. I would like to get past this Mercury-Venus conjunction. Somebody also was mentioning in the comments in this last week that they were noticing that the interest rates on like credit cards or loans or other things were going up, and it was like in the fine print. And I would say, yeah, if you're buying something online for the holidays and you're taking a flex pay, you better look at what the terms are and realistically how much you're going to be paying if the interest rates are going to be higher. Definitely look at the fine print when it comes to return policies, anything regarding receipts. So if you're buying valuable things, make sure you're keeping receipts. And I think a lot of people are really honestly just trying to figure out how to afford the holidays, because Scorpio can be dealing with debt and credit cards and trying to find ways to use points to travel so they don't have to pay for it, finding ways to use points to gift things so that way they can kind of afford gift giving. And I think it's going to get a little tricky when we start seeing some of these oppositions to Uranus in Taurus. Watch for some surprises in regards to values and conversations about money with other people. Now, globally, I think what we're going to find is that there is a continuation of scandals that will continue to come out. And obviously, Mercury is documents, it's journalists, it's conversations, it's words. Scorpio represents things that are connected to finances. It's connected to power. It's connected to sex. Venus is connected to women. So when we put this all together, right, in this next week, more diplomatic revelations in regards to secret conversations about financing and sexual scandals, i.e. the list. So if you guys have been following along what's been going on with the files, okay, files are being released, but they're heavily redacted, and they're now claiming that names connected to the Epstein list are not being put out because, it's going to compromise national security. A lot of this is Scorpio, it's security, and it's trining Saturn and Neptune. So it's trying to kind of protect and hide certain things so that way information is not being put out and being found vulnerable on the world stage. But I think really a lot of this is actually connected to not being able to put this information out because it would entangle so many people, not only in the United States, in both parties, but also major leaders and institutions and things connecting to banks and financing. So I'm wondering, are we going to see a very daring female journalist? I know we've been seeing stuff with some of the victims that have been coming out saying, put our names out, we don't care, we want it to be out there, it's already public knowledge. You got to keep in mind that there is a lot of manipulation that you deal with Scorpio, and there is a lot of manipulation because we are seeing some of this stuff that is trining Neptune, so it can be kind of falsified or hidden and opposing Uranus and Taurus, and that can mean the implication of some of this, sensitive information getting out and how this is going to impact the financial world. So can we see more about this? Yeah, but I'm not too optimistic that we're ever really going to see the list. I know I have seen certain things from certain victims that, claim that they had a dead man switch, that if anything happened to them, they would ensure that gets put out. We're hearing things from people like Thomas Massey and Taylor Greene, who are claiming they're going to go into Congress and they're going to speak the names out loud. But some of these actions, some of these words could be quite dangerous, especially when it comes to power. And that's because we're going to see this opposition between Venus and Uranus at 29. That's going to be about leadership. Huge rocks, rattles, and rolls also with the markets because 29 deals with Leo as well. I told you guys the last 2 weeks, I said as we were coming into the Scorpio new moon, you're going to see everything bottom out. It has happened. That's pretty common, like I said, with new moons. But some of these oppositions to Uranus and Taurus has definitely created a lot of financial chaos. And some of the trines to Neptune has people going, oh my God, is this the end? This is the great clearing out that's happening as we head into 2026, guys. So this was kind of expected. I think that personally, I would really focus this week on looking at where there is an opportunity to really dance with the shadow and embrace some of the things that are coming up. Maybe finally clear out some of the old romantic or financial kind of hiccups or hangups that we have. So that way we can emerge more powerful when it comes to our self-esteem, our security, our relationships, our finances, and also our personal values. So let's get into talking about the rest of the week. But just as a reminder, this transit will be taking place this week. So I will definitely be touching on it, but it's going to be the strongest about the 24th and the 25th. If you guys are watching this on Sunday, the 23rd, you could already be feeling this, but it is going to take a couple days before this is going to become exact. All right. So let's get into the week ahead. Let's talk all things connecting to the astro weather for the 23rd through the 30th. So if you guys are watching this on Sunday, happy Sunday to my Sunday crew. I hope you guys are well. Did touch on the transits of how Sunday was going to be playing out next week. But as you guys wake up this morning, the moon is moving through the sign of Capricorn. Okay, so this is about being practical. It's about being ambitious. It's about being grounded. And anytime the moon's going through Capricorn, we're going to be focusing on Saturn. Saturn's retrograde in Pisces. So we're reflecting on what's breaking down, what's letting go, what we need to let control go on. Maybe part of the process is about, releasing or detaching. I've heard from so many people in this last week that are telling me, oh my God, my company's issuing layoffs. I'm being offered a severance package. I'm being offered early retirement. A lot of that I think is due to the Mercury retrograde because Mercury is tied to the South Node. But also I think that we're going to see a continuation of this while Mercury is an aspect to Uranus and also Saturn and Neptune. But you may feel like even though it's Sunday, there is this more serious, business-oriented, wanting to get things done vibe. And throughout the day, you're going to see the moon make these aspects. First, it's going to come into a sextile with the North Node in Pisces, which is referencing what we need to do, which is rest, reflect, release, and let go. We're also going to see the moon come into a trine with the South Node. So it's about getting serious, getting busy, letting go of old, outdated habits or old ways of doing things, and getting organized. I think that because the moon, other than the aspects to the nodes, which it's making aspects, it's a rather kind of quiet day. We will also see the sun in Sagittarius come into a sextile with Pluto in Aquarius, and that is going to be about being optimistic about the changes in the future, or maybe traveling and connecting with networks, or what we're learning from, collaborating with other people. And we will also see this is the day that Mars is starting to build into a square with the North and the South Node. Now, if you guys didn't check out that video, I put it out a couple days early because Mars transits hit early. And quite frankly, I think this is a week where we have to show up. We have to make the decision to act, not necessarily react, and start putting, words into motion, and also really focusing on, taking some kind of action in the Sagittarius area of our chart. So putting all this energy together, obviously the Sun sextile Sag, I think is a pretty prominent, the Sun Sag sextile Pluto is a pretty prominent energy. I also think the Mars square is going to be prominent. You're going to see that building into Monday. But pretty unaspected moon. So the moon's going to start in the early morning hours at around 7 degrees of Capricorn. It looks like it's going to come into the sextile with the North Node and a trine to the South Node around 9 p.m. So this is going to be in the evening. And Mars hits 14 degrees, so you're starting to feel the square to the North and South Node. As we know, Mars is action, kind of dedication, our beliefs in what we're doing, Sagittarius, where we're traveling, what we're learning, legal matters, that kind of stuff. And this is happening at 14, which is a Taurus degree. So it's legal stuff connecting to education, connecting to banking, connecting to food, connecting to resources. And this is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's retrograde in Cancer. This is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's retrograde in Cancer. And this is ruled by Mercury. And Mercury's retrograde conjunct Venus. That means there's about to be some pretty big changes, I think, to international banking and financial themes. It may mean that we have a number of people that are quickly trying to travel or quickly trying to relocate. It can also mean that we have a number of people that are reevaluating and reassessing what they're willing to spend on travel or education. And likely in the next week or so, some pretty prominent changes going on with the legal system are really big. Like I said, we're going to see some really big decisions that might be connected to the Supreme Court. It might be connected to how lower courts are kind of functioning, things that could be overturned. because Mercury is retrograde as well. But you're going to start feeling that pressure to take action in the Sagittarius area of your chart. All in all, because we're not receiving a lot of support with Saturn retrograde on this day, we're not seeing a lot of aspects between, planets and the nodes on this day. Sunday feels grounded. It feels grounded. It's determined. We're building towards our dreams with the sextile to obviously the North Node in Pisces. And likely there is this feeling of karmic closure with old habits. That's the trine to the South Node in Virgo. I think to navigate Sunday, this is about focusing on long-term goals while the moon is in Capricorn. I think it's also about recognizing that, yes, practice makes perfect, but we can't be too harsh or too critical on ourselves. And it's about taking the necessary steps forward towards innovation and feeling, I think, more empowered. So Sunday's a good day to work differently, focus on your goals, maybe reevaluate or reassess what could be changing when it comes to your goals, your productivity, or your habits. For some of us, it's, hey, we've been overworking, we've been overdoing. Maybe it's about learning to kind of navigate some of our responsibilities intuitively as well. Now, this will take us into Tuesday, which is going to be the 24th. And when we wake up in the morning, the moon is still in Capricorn, so we're still playing off of that Saturn energy. It's now starting to come into a sextile throughout the day with Saturn and also with Neptune in Pisces. We will also see the moon on the other side sextiling Mercury and Venus in Scorpio. And this is where the Mercury-Venus conjunction is starting to kind of nuzzle up here. We will also see as the moon goes through Capricorn, it will eventually come into a square with Chiron and Aries, which can bring up some wounding on a personal kind of level. It's obviously retrograde, so it can also mean where we feel like, there's a lot of heavy lifting that's impacting us emotionally or personally when it comes to our work or our jobs. And it's also going to oppose Jupiter in Cancer. And I've observed when the moon goes through Libra or Capricorn, especially if you guys have any planets between, like, let's say 20 and 25 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, these cardinal squares or T-squares become very tense. There's a lot of moving parts where everything kind of has to happen at one time. So if you have any cardinal placements in those degrees on Monday, pay attention because it's going to feel like there's stuff that's coming from all different angles. Now, what we will also see happening on Monday is then after the square to Chiron and the opposition to Jupiter, which is probably going to inflame things and make home and family responsibilities go back and forth and feel quite intense. As we're getting throughout the day, it's then going to start building overnight into a trine with Uranus in Taurus, but that's going to happen when most of us are sleeping. Very active lunar transits on Monday. It is crazy. So if I'm looking at this from Central Time, I'm here in Texas, the first aspect you guys are going to see is that the moon is going to come into a sextile with Mercury and Venus. And I'm really focusing on like the early afternoon where the moon hits 22, which is a Capricorn degree, hard work, dedication, government responsibility, and work. We're going to see big government themes kind of going on. And this sextile to Mercury and Venus, which the conjunction is going to be at 22. So is there going to be changes regarding business, expenses, budgeting? Are we going to be hearing that certain, companies are cutting back or they're making changes to their leadership or they're making changes to their expenses? Is there going to be more news regarding information involving budgets, taxes, changes in regards to dealing with debt, dealing with consumer debt, maybe? But I like the trine to Mercury and Venus because it's about taking responsibility for these things that are being reworking. And I also like the trine to the sextile to Saturn and Neptune because it's about navigating some of these things intuitively and trying to make sense and have a sense of leadership amid some of the confusion. So, all right, other than all of those lunar transits that are going to happen, Monday is the day that Mars squares the North and South Node. So I can't help but notice that when this square comes in, once again, I said Jupiter is the dispositor of Mars, a lot of people are maybe going to be feeling like they're getting ready to travel, right? Mars in Sagittarius square the nodes is a lot of people getting on planes, a lot of people going places, a lot of people, having to go on long distance trips or they're preparing or they're buying airfare or whatever. And there could be we can be seeing that there can be some brawls going on in airports. We can see that people are getting frustrated because they're trying to get home, but you know, it's too expensive, right? Jupiter rules that. Or people are going to be saying, well, we actually want to do something different for the holiday this year. And that could be Thanksgiving if you're in the States. That could be how you're planning Christmas or New Year's even. But I think we're going to be hearing that there could be some major events this week connecting to air travel. Okay. And we've seen that throughout the last couple of weeks during the government shutdown. We saw that there was flights that were delayed. We saw that there was lots of issues with TSA. For now, it appears like all is well, but there is possible scenarios that could play out with Mars squared the North and the South Node, that we see another prominent issue with an airline, or we see a major issue with people, you know, who are fighting or complaining or getting agitated because their flights are delayed, or we're going to see some drama on the internet, I assume. Besides that, we will also see that there is going to be a Mercury conjunct Venus. So if we watch this, let's look at the moon. The moon will square Chiron around 3 p.m. Central, oppose Jupiter around 5 p.m. Central, and then we are going to see Mercury coming into conjunction with Venus in the evening, okay? So this is going to be Monday night. Mercury conjunct Venus, mind reevaluating or reassessing what? Values, money, relationships, secrets, more things being exposed in connection to that. I think it's going to be political crimes personally, because I'm watching the moon that's going to then sextile Saturn and Neptune that night, and then overnight it's going to come into conjunction with Pluto. So staying on Monday, just so much stuff going on, my God. 22 degrees. So that is a Capricorn degree. I think I've actually read to you guys the Sabian symbol, but let's just give you guys a little bit of feedback on that 22. So let's see. This is my degree theory book that I'm reading for you guys. So if you follow degree theory, 10 and 22 always deal with Capricorn. So it'll give us some kind of flavor for that Mercury Venus conjunction. Things that are older people, history, archaeology, something from the past, someone from the past, antiques, late with delay, later than usual, something that lasts long, durable, long lasting, with trouble, toilsome, difficult, hard, or persons with problems, to suffer, depression, gloomy, cold winter, ice, deep freeze, glaciers. That's connected to Mars. So I think we're going to see some, and I've seen this. I mean, I live in Texas. No joke, guys. It's like almost December. It's still been like 80 something degrees here. But we might see that there is some issues or delays with air travel due to cold fronts, or there being some mechanical issues due to weather, or maybe we're going to be seeing that, you know, there's going to be a massive kind of surge, which is expected, of prices due to holiday travel. Slow, dragging with delay, restraint, bad luck, spite, skin diseases, long-lasting treatments, issues with cancer, shortages, something short, poverty, things that are sour, black, gray, rock, stones, mountains, dust, dirty, smear, made of natural materials. Now, Mercury conjunct Venus can be about really making sure that we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of all of the details of some long-standing issues. So if there's been some long-standing relationship issues, long-standing financial issues, getting to the bottom of it, figuring out what's wrong, clearing it out, and trying to make it better. But I just have a hunch that there's probably going to be some pretty big things that are going to be taking place the 24th going into the 25th, where there's going to be more exposure, Scorpio, of manipulation. That could be financial manipulation, that could be mishandling of funds, that could be also more scandals relating to, you know, sexual scandals and stuff in politics. Certainly Pluto plays a role here too. It's also the ruler of Scorpio. And as we're getting into the 25th, some shocking kind of exposés and how people are reacting or responding to that. Now that would be 23 degrees of Scorpio for the Sabian symbols. A bunny metamorphs into a fairy. The keyword is transition. And the magic of your imagination. So it speaks to creativity and imagination of personal meanings. The image of a bunny Transforming into a fairy suggests enchantment, magic, and transformations of reality through supernatural powers of the mind. Implicit in this symbol is the ability of every individual to enhance his enjoyment of life by changing the way he views the world in which he lives. At its highest, it represents personal growth and development through power of positive thinking and creative visualization. Watch for disassociation and escape from reality through unhealthy fantasies and delusions. The accent is on transformation and change. You could be shocked or surprised by something that happens today. Your greatest advantage lies at looking for the highest and the best in others. Find the hidden promise in all things and nurture it. Think in terms of possibilities. Guard against preferring bizarre or fantastic explanations over the truth you've been afraid to face. Confront your fears and deal with them. Stepping stones is transformation, enchantment, magic, trickery, change, conversion, flux, alterations, and transmutation. So that was 23 because we round up. I keep finding myself, I've been saying this to clients, I've been saying this a lot like in my life. I'm like, yes, this sucks, this is difficult, but like, let's try to be optimistic and let's see the silver lining. And I don't know if it's just that, hey, it's just time that we face the music and we get this out in the open, and only then we can, better kind of strategize and kind of plan when it comes to wherever Jupiter is in your chart. But also, I think that it's not too hopelessly and gloriously optimistic because Saturn is there. And Saturn is saying, yeah, all good things must come to an end. And if this is what needs to be reworked, then let's just kind of take the positive. And what are we learning from all of this? That is the Sag influence, I think, with Mars. But certainly on the 24th, that Mars square the North and the South node, this is a day to not push things, not have knee-jerk reactions, keep an open mind, be willing to negotiate. Venus is about that. Even though Scorpio doesn't want to be vulnerable and open up, we can open up and say, hey, where can we take action? What can we do rather than focusing too much on the past? What we've done in the past hasn't worked. How do we move forward? And this is going to be a day where there's going to be emotional tension. You're going to see this emotional tension because the moon is going to oppose Jupiter, so there's big emotional reactions. The moon's squaring Chiron. So this also means that there's this tension between, do I nurture or do I focus on duty? And also these passionate reviews that will surface, and that's going to be bringing up wounds, but it's offering a chance to kind of purge and kind of tend to the wounds and finally heal it. So on Monday, we want to balance ambition with self-care. And that's because the moon's squaring Chiron. And also that sextile to Mercury and Venus it's also my job to take care of myself. It's my job to recognize what is and is not a healthy pattern, what I'm willing to kind of confront or deal or kind of clear out. We need to communicate vulnerabilities, and hopefully we can do that gently. And we want to really innovate some of our routines, especially with some of the sextiles that we're seeing to Mercury. I think that is like the way through. So a little bit of a manic Monday. Don't rush, especially if you're dealing with heat, speed, anything like that, and not making any impulsive travel or financial decisions is recommended because, well, Mercury's still retrograde. All right, so this is going to take us into Tuesday. That'll be the 25th. And when we wake up in the morning, the moon is now in Aquarius. So overnight, it made a trine to Uranus and Taurus. So maybe some of the changes and things that are going out in the world, has an impact physically or financially. But when we wake up in the morning on Tuesday with that moon in conjunction to Pluto, it's emotional purging and detox, okay? This is where collectively in Aquarius, there is some exposure or something is coming out that's shocking and surprising, something that is impacting all of us. Like the internet's going to be ablaze with some things that are connected to what? Uranus. Uranus is the ruler, and it's 29 degrees of Taurus. So this is why you're going to be hearing about lots of stress going on with the bond markets, lots of issues going on with the banks, whether or not there is going to be some, pressure to make some changes in regards to, regulations or how they're dealing with things. There could also be some earth changes. Uranus and Taurus is critical 29, where there's pressure that's leading to earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, major, kind of changes going on with the planet. But at 1 degree, I think this is going to be relating to tension, stress, and conflict, potential military operations, which I have thought may be happening anyway this week, with Mars square the North and the South node. Of course, much of it may be covert, but it may start to become more obvious that there is some kind of escalating tensions going on with like military mobilization around the world. But moon conjunct Pluto is where we wake up and we're just like emotionally kind of like purging. Now it will have an outlet. So like that moon is going to sextile the sun in obviously Sagittarius. So air and fire fuel each other. So we can be a little bit more focused on, what's going on globally. What are we learning? What's the bigger meaning of this? And be sharing and kind of connecting with collective groups. Uranus does rule this moon and it's retrograde at 29, like I said, as does Saturn, which is retrograde in Pisces, not really making any aspects throughout the sky. So the only real big aspect that you're going to be seeing on Tuesday is that the moon is going to conjunct Pluto early in the morning, which is going to bring up that intensity, and then it's going to sextile the sun in Sag. Other than that, there's not much going on. So believe it or not, things will, as the day go on, I think wind down a little bit on Tuesday. And I would say the key transit here is just that moon-Pluto conjunction. The fact that the moon is going to be really activating transformative change. That change can be with your friends, your community, with things that are going on online, with your collective kind of future plans. Maybe even some of us might be future tripping. You need to watch out for that on Tuesday, where there can be that moon-Pluto conjunction. And then what we're going to find is that as we go throughout the day, there is that lingering Mercury conjunct Venus, thing that has happened the day before. So if you were going back and forth and having, some kind of secret exposed, or you're dealing with financial or relationship changes, now we wake up and we go, okay, well, we got to face the music. This is the reality of the situation as we move forward. That moon will sextile the sun, so that's going to at least have us kind of going, all right, we're positive and optimistic about what we've been learning. This is about midday, and helping us communicate and kind of connect with like-minded friends. And then things kind of like chill out for the rest of Tuesday. But I think on the 25th, the daily vibe means that in the morning there's sudden insights. Maybe we have some rebellious feelings that are coming up with the moon in Aquarius, especially when it's conjunct Pluto. Maybe there is some kind of collective focus, humanitarian focuses that are coming up, drama that's happening with friendships. So to navigate Tuesday, I would say this is about really leaning into that Aquarius moon. I like when the moon's in Aquarius. It teaches me to be more detached. It's also about really focusing on clarity and maybe trying to network with the right people and releasing any control. Now, the cool thing is also Sagittarius is about not just traveling and education, it's advertising, right? It's promoting. It's going to be anything about teaching or legal matters. It can also be connected to publishing. So if you're trying to get the word out, I would say it can be a decent day to get some communications out on Tuesday. I mean, I think that a lot of people are probably really holding back with Mercury retrograde at the beginning of the week, coming into conjunction with Venus. That's going, no, I'm going to wait for a better deal. I'm not going to spend my money. I'm going to hold out. And we're probably going to see some retailers that are going to be looking like previous years that have noted that there's been less people spending money on Black Friday, or less, consumers that are driving, sales. And they're probably going to have several levers that are going to be set up. That's like, okay, this product's not selling enough, drop the price. Okay, that's not selling enough, drop the price. And you'll start to see things that become, I think, cheaper and cheaper. And it may pay not to immediately jump on some of the immediate sales that we're going to be having prior to Black Friday. This is just me astro kind of spitballing here. But I think that there is a knowing that people are being more cautious with their money because it's trining Saturn. Money is harder to come by right now. I mean, it's just, everything is so expensive. And with Venus conjunct Mercury, with Mercury retrograde, they're going to be waiting to see what the numbers are and if they're going to have to be willing to make some sacrifices, trines to Pisces. So take your time, guys. Don't jump on all of the sales that come out immediately. I would also say that on on Tuesday, this is a time where, we really want to release control. I think that would be a good focus with the moon conjunct Pluto. I think Mercury conjunct Venus has been like, okay, I've held on to this long enough. I don't need to keep these old texts. I don't need these old photos. I don't need to, allow this to be all consuming. It's time for me to really move forward and let certain situations go. So we get through the rest of Tuesday, not much is going on. The moon's not going to be aspected. Mercury and Venus have already come into conjunction. The moon's doing its thing. So that's going to then take us into what will be the 26th, which will be Wednesday. And on Wednesday morning, the moon is still in Aquarius, so we're still focusing on social networking, detachment, all of that stuff. We see a little bit of a sextile here to Mars and Sagittarius, so that's also good for planning travel, anything regarding connecting with friends, groups, parties, socializing, being with friends. But nothing's going on with Uranus, nothing's going on with Saturn, so it's still rather unaspected. Probably the big thing that you're going to see on Wednesday is just that the moon is going to start to sextile Chiron and Aries, and it's also going to begin to come into a square with Mercury in Scorpio and Venus in Scorpio. So let's look at that. So you'll get the sextile to Chiron in the evening hours, kind of going into overnight. Communication, money-related things, relationship-related things become a little challenging on Wednesday night. And that's going to be when the moon is coming into a square with Mercury, where it's kind of hard maybe to communicate and connect with people in a social setting because people are feeling a little unsure with the Mercury retrograde. And then it's going to come into a square with Venus. That looks like that's also going to be happening overnight. But still, Wednesday night, people may not feel like socializing and connecting and collaborating because there's some kind of emotional detachment and hang up that's coming up with travel, work, and pleasure and enjoying ourselves, right? However, this is the day that you will see Venus that will not only trine Jupiter in Cancer, but it will also trine Saturn in Pisces. So let's take the clock back a little bit so you guys can see that. So it looks like Jupiter's at 24:46-ish. So you're going to see in the morning, Venus in Scorpio at 24 will trine Jupiter in Cancer at 24. 24 is a Pisces energy. So photos, medications, alcohol, drugs, hidden things, stuff that we didn't know, things that are resurfacing, stuff that goes missing is going to be a theme. And a lot of people will say, oh, but Venus is a benefic and it's going to trine Jupiter. Yes, okay, but Jupiter's retrograde and Venus is in Scorpio. So this means that we're going to be feeling more emotional, more sentimental, more hung up on the past, more unsure about how to move forward, bigger feelings about what's happened in the past or about what we can or cannot let go. In spite of that, later in the evening, Venus will come into a trine with Saturn, which stabilizes, it harmonizes, it allows us to commit, make long-term plans. It teaches us that some of the difficult sacrifices we make in relationships or the things that we're willing to overlook or let go can actually bring us the opportunity to transmute some of the problems and come out the other side stronger, right? More unified, having a stronger kind of perspective about money or feeling more solid about investments or financial situations. It's hard to say how that's going to go. I think that I'm optimistic that for the water signs, this will be good because finally, after having like Mercury retrograde and all the financial challenges, maybe Venus trining Jupiter means, okay, we're starting to see improvement and things are kind of expanding and looking a little bit brighter. And then the trine to Saturn means it's going to stabilize and we're going to start to see that some of like the chaos that's been happening with the financial stuff, especially the markets, is starting to improve. But not a fan of Saturn and Jupiter being retrograde. And also we're going to have Mercury conjunct Venus still. So I'm kind of on the fence about that one. Basically on Wednesday, what I would say is that the vibe does feel like with the water trines that there is going to be more emotions that are flowing. Some of us may feel the sweetness. We may feel the abundance. Some of us might feel like it's more about compassionate breakthroughs or finally coming to this realization that something has come to an end and it's difficult, but it's actually easier to release. And I think to navigate Wednesday, it's about nurturing, right? Nurturing home and family relationships with the trine to Jupiter. It's also about setting better boundaries with the trine to Saturn. And this is going to be really indicating that many of us have to forgive past hurts. And so I kind of look at this and I'm like, man, it's like the day before Thanksgiving. Some people who may feel like they're at odds with certain relatives or family members or whatever, may feel a little uneasy, but they're willing to kind of put, their pride or their ego aside and kind of like make good and show up and socialize. And maybe that is part of the Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, that's like, well, there's been some issues or they've said some things or I don't like their political views, whatever. But I'm willing to, put that in the past and put that aside and like show up. So some people may actually be able to do that with some of these transits. We'll see. So, all right, moving on to the 27th, which is going to be Thursday. All right, so the moon, like I said, at night it's going to come into a square with these two. And then that's going to take us into Thursday, the 27th. And very first thing in the morning, the moon in Aquarius, it's just wrapping up its tour here, is going to start coming into a square with Uranus. Okay, so Uranus in Taurus is kind of like turbulent. Moon in Aquarius might mean, there's going to be some challenges late morning into the early afternoon when this hits 29, where parties, gatherings, get-togethers, and some friction with emotional connection and values, resources, money, food. And it's a closing square. So it's saying in order to navigate some of these fluctuating changes that's going on with physical circumstances, financial circumstances, a lot of people who are like have food issues or food intolerances, or they don't eat certain things. Maybe the moon square is kind of saying we're adapting to that. Okay, everybody's chipping in for the holiday, or maybe everybody is deciding to bring their own dish, or certain people are going to be, opting to maybe try to contribute in their own unique way. But moon square Uranus is emotionally kind of static. So pretty much the morning into the early afternoon, you're going to see that square. This is also indicating that there is a critical turning point, because not only is the moon squaring its dispositor, but it's at 29 degrees. So that's drama. All right, in the mid-afternoon, the moon's going to enter Pisces. So that is going to bring a pretty significant vibe shift. And that's going to go from more kind of social, being detached and kind of open-minded or wanting to kind of party, to a more reflective, emotional, sensitive, private type of vibe. And on the 27th, what we're going to have in the late evening and going into the overnight hours is the first quarter square. So this is, if you guys have been following since the new moon that we had in Scorpio, now the moon is, growing into what will be a full moon here in a couple weeks. And this is the first square that it's making to the sun. So it represents crisis in action. Sun in Sag wants travel, it wants optimism, it wants joy. And moon in Pisces is quiet, reflective, it's emotional, it's unsure, it's more intuitive, it's more internal. So we're going to be feeling a little bit of friction in the do I stay or do I go? Do I put myself out there? Do I keep to myself type of environment? Now, I think that that's the most important transit for the day is going to be that first quarter square. I think that with, some of the first quarter square energy and also like the moon square Uranus energy, Thursday feels like there's going to be a lot of unexpected disruptions. I think there can also be those disruptions that's also giving way to us being a little more lenient and maybe compassionate with other people. Maybe we're more dream oriented on Thursday, but watch for that tension to act on vision or intuition. That's going to be the moon square the sun. I think to navigate this day, it's about staying flexible with your plans, because when the sun and the moon square, things don't always go according to plan. And I think we're going to see a lot of extreme or dramatic kind of weather events that's going to influence people's ability to travel, quite literally. I think it's also going to be about practicing gratitude, which is the irony that this is going to be happening on Thanksgiving, being thankful for what we do have. And also I think that this is about maybe taking some time to kind of relax, unwind, meditate a little bit, and like get some rest if necessary while the moon is in this sign. And while the moon is in Pisces, we're looking at what's going on with Jupiter. So it's interesting that we're in the middle of now Sagittarius season. We're going to have the moon that's going to be in Pisces, also ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is retrograde at a 24. So some people might be going like, I'm not spending it with family, I'm spending it alone. Or, I'm not entirely sure what my family is doing. Or maybe it means that you're going back home, but you're not entirely too sure what to expect. Or that there is some changing circumstances in what's happening with family or with living situations. Now you'll see the square happening at 5 degrees. So this is going to be happening in the later evening hours for some people overnight. And that looks like it's going to square literally around 11 to 12 Central Time. So most of us are going to be, at least if you're within the United States, we're going to be asleep unless you're still up partying on Thanksgiving. I would say Be careful with, obviously, weather forecasts, weather advisories. Also, when the moon's in Pisces, people drink. It's pretty common, especially with Saturn and Neptune, or people are drugging, or, you know, they're isolating, or there's some negative habits that are kind of coming up. So we want to watch for maybe isolating or indulging alone, oversleeping, watching too much TV, drinking, all that stuff can be kind of happening. And we'll come into what will be Friday, which is going to be the 28th. So on the 28th, first thing in the morning, the moon is in Pisces. So with that moon in Pisces, traditionally, I mean, we're looking at Jupiter, so maybe some of us are kind of feeling, if you're celebrating the holiday, you're kind of, oh, I have the day off, I'm sleeping in, right? Or maybe it means that you're feeling a little bit more in tune, or there is a focus on getting up and meditating, or spending time taking a long hot shower, you know, going for a walk, being by water, just relaxing. The moon will come into a conjunction with the North Node. So this means that we're supposed to be feeling dreamy and intuitive and kind of tapped into things on this day. Jupiter's still retrograde, nothing's really going on there. We are going to see that the moon is going to be coming into contact with the North Node. So something that's happening on Friday the 28th to me feels very fated in a way. But shortly after it connects to the North Node, it's going to square Mars. And like I said, mutable squares do manifest generally as weather results, issues with travel. We can also see that there can be major shifts in our beliefs. So there could be some heated cultural debates, or religious or spiritual debates, or, you know, difference of kind of philosophy and some kind of cultural friction going on. We can also see that, you know, in spite of some of those squares where we can be feeling a little agitated or rushed, or maybe not seeing eye to eye with someone, the moon will actually start coming into a trine with Mercury towards the end of the evening. And on Friday, this is when Mercury turns direct. So we're going to see the Mercury retrograde end. So that's wonderful as well. So if we look at this transit by transit on Friday, it looks like the moon is going to come into a conjunction with the North Node right around like the 3-4 o'clock hour. Then right after that, it's going to come into a square with Saturn. So this makes it more difficult, I think, when it comes to getting around on Friday evening. This is at a 17, so it's going to be a degree that deals with drama in our relationships, dealing with children or kids or romantic partners. We could also see that there is one side of us with all this Pisces energy that's just like, don't say anything, just rest, recuperate. And others that are like, no, let's get out there, let's go somewhere, let's do something. And there's like this tug of war. And with Moon square Mars, some of us are going to be feeling more emotionally like we want to retreat. And then other people are going to be on the offense, you know, and they're going to be kind of, you know, trying to rile up some people. So watch for that. And then that moon is going to come into a trine with Mercury, and that'll be in the overnight hours. So man, moon conjunct North Node on Friday is definitely about, you know, fated spiritual insights, prominent dreams, messages, intuitive hits that are kind of coming up. And I also think that this is the preparation, because Mercury is actually stationing. So I take that back. Mercury won't go direct until Saturday the 29th, but it's sitting at the degree which it's going to go retrograde in, and the moon is trining that. So usually when a planet is getting ready to go direct or retrograde, when it's stationing, there's big Mercury, in this case, things that are going to be happening. So big news, and it's stationing at a 20. So big secrets, big news, big breakthroughs about what's failing or what's falling apart or what's breaking out. And I just really feel like we have to trust. We have to trust that whatever is breaking down or not working, we can't get our backs up against the wall and go, no, I don't want to let that go. Because sometimes with Scorpio energy, it's almost like we have a tendency to clutch onto something that's dead. And because there's fear and scarcity and other insecurities or trauma, or in many cases, I mean, many of us might feel like we are addicted in a way to unhealthy relationships, unhealthy ways of thinking, unhealthy ways of spending or consuming, that we don't know how to just let go. And what I like about these Pisces transits is it's just like, well, we just have to let go. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. We have to trust the process. Why? Because it'll be better for us emotionally in the long run, right? Jupiter in Cancer. So on Friday, there will be a lot more emotional sensitivity. You're going to find also that communication is preparing to clear up, but there can be some really important conversations that are coming up, or your intuition or your dreams can be very strong. I would also say that to best navigate today's astrology, trust your intuition, okay? Especially when it comes to, well, the moon's starting to trine Mercury and Venus, deals, shopping. I mean, I'm gonna let you guys in on a secret here, okay? I've noticed for the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have maybe seen this, I have a habit of putting things in my cart, whether it's Amazon or whatever, and being like, okay, I'm gonna wait till this thing goes on sale. And I have noticed the last couple of years, it would appear that the prices of products in the month of November will gradually increase. And then during Black Friday or their holiday sales, it'll come back down to regular price, and they will say, it's on sale, it's Black Friday. So everybody's gonna get so excited about, ooh, it's on sale, I'm gonna buy it, when it's really just its regular price. And I know a lot of other retailers do the same thing. So I'm looking at like the Mercury Venus going, all right, this is what people are doing. And people are probably picking up on that this is what's happening, or people don't have the money to spend, or they're saying, hey, I'm just gonna wait and see if there's gonna be a better deal. So waiting and practicing a little bit of patience with that moon Saturn thing, and also maybe recognizing and realizing that it may not even be about things at all. Certainly Jupiter being connected to this means that maybe what we need to be focusing more on is, less time consuming, more time spending time with family, or focusing on what we're putting into home or resources or stability. So on Friday, trust your gut when it comes to intuition, but that could also mean when it comes to making investments, when it comes to relationships. Definitely avoid arguments, because that can happen with the moon square Mars, and maybe try to take a little bit of time to kind of rest and reflect. This will take us into Saturday, the 29th. And in the morning, we're going to see the moon coming into conjunction with Saturn. And also, it's still slightly trining Mercury and Venus. So the moon will be trining Mercury and Venus on this day, which is going to improve, I think, emotional communication, romantic relationships, intimacy talks, that kind of stuff. But the moon will come into a conjunction with Saturn, and it'll actually sit right between Saturn and Neptune. So the moon's going to be kind of enclosed between those two planets. In spite of that, the trine to Jupiter, I think, is very uplifting, and it's emotional because that's the chart ruler. We've got mutual reception here between the moon and Jupiter, so it is about resting and kind of listening to our gut and maybe resting more. We're also going to see that in the late evening, it's going to be shifting gears, and it's going to be going into Aries. So we usually feel that jolt when we go from all that, Pisces energy, where we're kind of like in dreamland, to all of a sudden it's in Aries. The key transit that you're going to want to watch for on the 29th on Saturday is that Mercury is going to go direct in Scorpio. So the Mercury retrograde's over, and we're going to see Venus oppose Uranus. Holy cow. Is that the financial shock or surprise? Maybe. Think back, guys. We just had a new moon in Scorpio, right? With the Cazimi, it opposed Uranus. So there was a lot of static over money, resources, back and forth. It's almost highlighting that. So in a way, Venus coming into conjunction with that new moon degree can mean that what intentions we were seeding just recently in this last week, now all of a sudden we're reaping the benefits. But it still brings up that very stressful angle to Uranus, which means that there's like a make or break energy going on in some financial systems or in some relationships. So, wow, there's a lot going on Saturday. So let's look at this play by play. It looks like if we're looking at this first thing in the morning, the moon is still picking up a trine to Mercury, but this is more about maybe intuitively, kind of tapping in before we make any decisions, or we're dealing with debt or loans or joint financial matters. Then we're going to see the moon come into a conjunction with Saturn around 11 a.m. Central Time. So that's that emotional kind of hardening and restriction. However, even in spite of that, it is trining Jupiter. So that's also telling us, go with your gut, turn within, reflect, focus on the past or the emotions. And I've noticed whenever planets are going between Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, it's like clown world. It's like there's so much misinformation, things that are manipulated. There's a lot of, stuff that's been edited or kind of chopped up that seems real, but it's not. There can be a lot of conspiracy related things that are going on, water events, certainly. So I think of like Saturn as being stuff connecting to coastal cities, storms, flooding, issues with dams, issues with, water that's giving way in some place. Or I think in other scenarios, it's going to be the emotional kind of limitations that are starting to kind of dissolve and break down. And that trine to Jupiter is trying to get us to kind of finally release the past. So we got to work with water as we do this. And the moon is going to head towards a conjunction with Neptune, and it's going to come into a trine with Venus and a sextile with Uranus. So it's highlighting this Venus-Uranus opposition. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that could definitely be some more shocks and surprises in relationship and financial land for sure. And then we're going to see the moon coming into conjunction with Neptune at 29, right here. This is in the 6 p.m. hour, 29, 29, 29. Venus is going to hit 29. I mean, like literally, guys, this is crazy. So this is what, Saturday? I don't know if that's all going to hit exactly at the same time. It might. It's pretty close. Yeah, it's pretty close. So right around the time the moon changes degrees, Venus is changing degrees, and that's going to be around 7 o'clock. So then we're going to see the moon conjunct Neptune, which is going to be more dreamy, magical, emotional, but we can also feel like we're more prone to self-sabotaging habits and tendencies or drama, especially in fantasies or things that we're kind of believing in. And then we're going to see the moon change signs. It's going to go into Aries a little bit after 7 Central. And then we're going to begin to see Venus coming into opposition with Uranus. Like Saturday night looks a little, I think the big transit is going to be both that Mercury goes direct in Scorpio and it's going direct at a Scorpio degree. So it's like doubly Scorpio. So whatever back and forth about these secrets or financial matters or intimate or psychological breakthroughs are finally coming online. 2 is going to be that we're going to see Venus oppose Uranus. So if you go back and think about the Mercury retrograde, right, it's opposed Uranus several times, once in Gemini and once in Taurus, and it's very financial related in Scorpio and Taurus. It's at 29, which is a critical energetic degree, which brings the drama. And then on top of that, we are also going to be seeing that then the moon goes into Aries. So we're not focusing so much on Jupiter anymore on Saturday night. Now we're going to be focusing more on Mars. And Mars is now starting to come out of that square with the North and the South node. You know, Saturday night, late Saturday night into Sunday is going to be a little bit more get up and go energy. But if you're out and about on Saturday, you know, be mindful of expenses, be mindful of anything that deals with, you know, drama with relationships or couples. You're going to see that, especially like around 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, because Venus is going to make that opposition. And Venus in Scorpio, like I said, it has a tendency to have a difficult time trusting or being vulnerable or being open. And there could be shocks and surprises with relationships or partners or issues with banking. Like, we've seen issues during the Mercury retrograde shadow where there was issues getting money on and off of exchanges. Recently, we saw under the Scorpio new moon, when Mercury was in opposition to Uranus, that we had a bunch of, I think it was one of the cloud platforms that was down, and there was a bunch of like apps and things that just weren't working, right? I know that Twitter wasn't working for a period of time. There was issues that were going on with certain apps, particularly financial or communication-based apps. So now Venus is going to do the same thing. And Venus rules Uranus, right? It's in Taurus. And this is connected to Mars, which is in Sag, and it's also connected to Pluto, which is in Aquarius. So you'll have to reflect back on what happened with the Scorpio new moon. I mean, every single Uranus opposition for me has been textbook. Like, I was like, oh, this could happen, and it did. So I'm already kind of knowing what to anticipate, but I think that what's been interesting throughout this whole process is that when these planets oppose at 29 degrees, they're trining Neptune. And Neptune retrograde is this being created? Is there intentionally confusion? Is there a bunch of collective emotions that we're picking up on that's making us feel very reactionary? Are we kind of having meltdowns going, this is the end of the world? Or we just want to, like, you know, blow everything up? Because that's how it manifests from what I've seen. I'm not saying you should do that, but I can see where there's a lot of people getting very emotional going, oh my God, I'm drowning, you know, and it can feel like that. Once again, still water-related things because of some of those trines. So on Saturday, you know, there is this moon coming into conjunction with Saturn. So yeah, there can be a serious emotional kind of maturity that's kind of coming online. But I'm expecting dramatic makeups and breakups on Saturday night. There could be some major value shifts going on where hoping that clarity is going to return because Mercury is going direct, but it's going direct at that Scorpio degree. So it's about, okay, the cat's out of the bag. We've said the things, we've found out the things, there's been the exposure, and now here is the effects, financially, emotionally, and even like relationship wise. And that's all going to play out on Saturday. So to best navigate Saturday, I think that this is about staying grounded, right? The day starts with the moon in Pisces coming into conjunction with Saturn in Pisces. So we want to keep our emotions grounded in reality. That's also about meditating and reflecting early in the day so you can navigate some of the chaotic kind of oppositions and trines that are going to happen later on Saturday night. Expect relationship surprises. I do think that it can be good surprises for some people. It's like, oh my God, surprise parties, surprise gifts, people showing up I didn't see. You know, that's very possible. But I also know that that 29 degrees does bring up some drama. So if there are positive changes or breakthroughs, celebrate those. Celebrate, you know, the fact that you're responding to things differently. Maybe that surprises you or surprises another person. Celebrate that forward motion. And then this is going to take us into what's going to be the 30th, which will be Sunday. And when we wake up on Sunday in the morning, the moon is still in Aries. And this is a very get up and go day. I kind of like Sunday. Because when the moon's in Aries, you know, we can go and we can get things done. We can feel more assertive. We can feel more bold. We can feel more active. And obviously, this is going to be a day that's ruled by Mars, and Mars is in Sagittarius. So not only are you going to see the sun in Aries trine the moon, the sun in Sag trine the moon in Aries. That's a fire trine. But you're also going to see the moon start heading towards a trine with Mars. Probably the only, I hate to say the only good day all day, but you know, it feels like it. Venus and the Uranus opposition are still hanging around. But at least we're like, okay, we're going to get out. We're going to go somewhere. We're going to do something. Definitely Sunday is a better travel day. So if you're having to come or go somewhere, this is a better day to travel. I think there's going to be less kind of like mix-ups and confusion. We will also see that this is the day that Venus is going to now start coming into a trine with Neptune. And it's kind of hanging around, you know, with the opposition and that building trine into a trine with Neptune. So this is also about completing or concluding things. I think a lot of it's about forgiveness. It's about compassion, you know, with Neptune and Pisces. And we will also see right after this Venus trine Neptune, Venus is going to enter into Sagittarius. So we're going to have Venus, the Sun, and Mars all in Sagittarius on Sunday. So it's just a lot of more fire energy, and we're finally getting out of all of this like heavy water stuff. Now, we'll look at that. So it looks like we're going to pick up a trine between the sun and the moon around like 9-10 o'clock Central Time. Okay, so that's going to be action, and Aries is bold, and it's about the self, and it's about physical activity and our goals and assertiveness. And so many people are going to go, well, what am I doing? What am I pursuing? You know, education, travel, you know, booking flights, plans, going places, learning. And people are feeling incentivized to want to do those things. Mars is not yet coming into a square with Saturn. So we're kind of in a good spot, at least right now. All right, so then we keep moving. We're going to see then the Venus ingress into Sag around the early afternoon, around 2 o'clock-ish Central Time. Now relationships are more bold, they're adventurous, there's more openness when it comes to culture and differences, and a love and appreciation for people and places and things that are different, right? It's going to be about trying new food, learning about new cultures. It's going to be about, for some people, long-distance relationships. It's going to be about a love for things that seem exotic. All of this is ruled by Jupiter. So I think a lot of people are going to be saying, I'm thinking about moving somewhere new, or I'm thinking about traveling to a place I haven't been, or I'm visiting family that lives far away. And the moon is still supporting all of that. And we will see the moon continue to go through Sagittarius. The moon will continue to go through Aries. I'm looking at all that Sag. And it's going to come into a trine with Mars overnight. So hands down, Sunday's the best day, I think. There's going to be a lot of shocks and surprises all week, but then we're finally going to feel like we're breaking free as we kind of get to Sunday. So watch on Sunday for taking initiative. I think it's about feeling bold and independent with that moon in Aries. Watch for Maybe some romantic idealism, because before Venus goes into Sag, it's trining Neptune, but it's highly creative, it's inspirational. We can be great with music and inspiration and painting and anything connected to like spirituality and photography and cinematography too. And then, you know, we're going to kind of close out November and we're going into December, and we're going into an area that with all this Sag is going to feel more optimistic. It's going to be feeling more expansive. And I can't wait to talk to you guys about the next 2 weeks, because as we're heading into Sagittarius season, okay, the beginning of December, all these planets going through Sag, now we're in the halfway point from the eclipses that we had in September. If you guys remember back, we had an eclipse that was in Virgo, and we had an eclipse that was in Pisces. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to look around in December and they're going to go, what the heck is going on? What's happening? Well, not only do you have all these planets in Sagittarius coming into a superior square with Pisces, which I think just in layman's terms literally means we start to figure out what's going on, what the bigger picture is. We feel more confident, more enthusiastic. We're more willing to kick off the new year, getting out of our own way and no longer hiding or keeping to ourselves, or, you know, wanting to feel like we're hitting an invisible wall. We start kind of going, all right, we need to get up, we need to take action, we need to learn, we need to find coaches, we need to find mentors, we're going to take classes. But this is the halfway point through the eclipse season. So a lot of people are going to recognize and realize that if we want to get out of things that are unhealthy or not working, if we want to get into finally making the necessary moves intuitively to go in the direction of our future, our purpose, we have to learn. And I think it's going to be a lot of people who are going to be faced with the harsh reality of, I'm going back to school, you know, I'm going and studying a new career, or, you know, I'm no longer following this kind of practice when it comes to health and habits. I've got this new author I'm following, or this new dietitian, or, you know, maybe I'm eating based more off of my genetics, my culture, the food that, you know, my ancestors or my family members ate before I was born. It's gonna be interesting, but December is going to be a whole other bag of tricks. Watch the December horoscopes. I do talk about that if you guys haven't seen them already. I do apologize. Like towards the end, I lost my camera on that. I was filming it on Venus. I was filming it on Mercury in opposition to Uranus, and like the camera went out. So most of them are there, but you guys still get the audio. All right. So, you know, start bold things on Sunday. Chase inspiration. I think that's the focus. And we want to end the week on an optimistic kind of high and really bouncing back from some of the more chaotic energies that were happening earlier in the week. So definitely let me know what happens for you guys. I would love to hear. But in the meantime, I would like to talk to you guys a little bit about this Mercury Retrograde Conjunct Venus energy, because I do think with the ties to the South Node, and we're dealing with the past, and this being kind of complex with Mercury retrograde, it can be really helpful to get some insight as to where and how this transit may potentially hit for a lot of people. So I'm going to be talking about this from the perspective of the whole rising signs for Western astrology. That's the astrology that I practice. If you're Placidus, you just want to look at where 22 degrees of Scorpio is in your chart. That conjunction, you're going to maybe have to listen to more than one rising sign. Otherwise, you can listen to the whole rising signs, and I'm going to talk about what Mercury and Venus kind of rule in your chart, where the conjunction is taking place, what might happen, and give you guys a little bit of feedback on that. So we're going to start with, obviously, my Aries and my Aries risings. For you guys, you're going to experience Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, conjunct Venus in Scorpio in your natal 8th house. And so Aries, you know, Scorpio is a house that is hidden, okay? It can kind of represent stuff that kind of is hidden from you, maybe things that are sensitive, stuff that you want to keep private, things that could be more emotional in regards to intimacy or like psychological or joint financial things. Now, the way I like to break this down is I like to work with the chart rulerships. So if I look at, or the house rulerships, if I look at what Mercury rules, it rules your 3rd house. So things like contracts, communications, conversations, maybe vehicles, siblings, and then it also is connected to work and health or routine. versus Venus, which is more connected to your personal values. It's also connected to your money, your self-esteem, as well as your relationships and anything connecting to clients, romantic partnerships, committed partnerships. And it's conjuncting in the 8th. So it means that there's messages coming back or conversations coming back or some changes that are happening in how you're managing joint assets or how you're, kind of navigating having conversations about intimate things. So when we tie these two together, it's going to be a deep dive of joint finances. Now that could be insurance matters, investments, tax matters, inheritances. Maybe you're going to be having more intimate talks and conversations in relationships, and likely transforming your daily routines through being a little bit more vulnerable with other people. Now, I do predict, Aries, that you are one of the signs where you may see that ex-partners resurface. But it could also mean that you're going back and forth with the next partner over a financial matter, or maybe there is some breakthrough that you're having when it comes to intimacy in a relationship. I think this is about really healing through honest conversations, and that could be at work, that could be with partners. And I think to navigate this transit, I would be keeping an eye out for secrets. There can be some secret information that can kind of come up. I would also avoid impulse spending. And I think that some of you guys may have some breakthroughs doing some journaling or some shadow work to really identify what you're afraid of, what it's time to kind of let go of, and how some of those fears and those negative emotions could actually be impacting your health or your habits. Good luck, Aries, and let me know what happens. All right, for my Taurus and Taurus risings, what's up, Taurus? You guys are going to be experiencing Mercury retrograde coming into conjunction with Venus in Scorpio in your 7th house of relationships. Now, Taurus, this is an interesting one for you because Mercury is retrograding. So somebody, 7th house, is coming back to have a conversation with you, or you're going back and forth in regards to a situation involving an existing partnership or whether or not you get into one. So if we break this down, Mercury rules your personal values, resources, and self-esteem. It's also directly tied to your 5th house, which can be about obviously taking chances. It can be about anything kind of connecting to maybe romance, or maybe anything kind of connected to children. And we've got Venus, which rules you, yourself, and your body, and also your 6th house of health and habits. So we put this conjunction, Mercury conjunct Venus, in the 7th house. And I think that this conjunction is really highlighting for you deep reviews, maybe of your relationship habits. I think this could also be about passionate reconnections with lovers or spouses. It can be about reviewing your self-worth and relationships. Yes, you can hear from past people. Yes, you can be going back and forth in an existing relationship, deciding whether or not you're going to stay with it or if you're going to leave. You could be negotiating something financially with a client or with another person as well. And I think that for you guys, even in spite of the maybe hearing from exes thing, there can actually be this very strong magnetic connection and attraction that you have to another person. Like the right person can come in, or you can really hit your stride in an existing relationship. And some of your values are going to start to kind of into alignment, I think, in a relationship. So if you communicate your desires openly, Taurus, you're going to find that things can actually really start to grow and transform in your relationships. It's a lot of clearing things out and having difficult conversations that can bring you closer together with another person. This could also be a good time to, pamper yourself. Maybe it's a time to, set boundaries with certain relationships. Maybe it's a time to be more clear. Certainly the trines to Jupiter really help you find the right words and focus on goals that you can kind of accomplish in a relationship to get to where you want to go. But watch for partners that can be kind of bringing up information or going back and forth with you and talking about things you did not know. I think that that's definitely possible. All right, so good luck, Taurus and Taurus risings. Let me know how that happens in your opposite sign, especially with Venus in opposition to Uranus this week. All right, Gemini and Gemini risings. You guys are going to experience Mercury retrograde in Scorpio conjunct Venus in Scorpio in your 6th house. Obviously, this is important for you because you're ruled by Mercury. So In your chart, Mercury rules your first house of self, and it's also directly connected to your fourth house of home and also the south node. So as Mercury is retrograde in the sixth house, you are rethinking your home organization, your schedule, your health, maybe your job or your work schedule in some capacity. And it's coming into conjunction with Venus, which represents kind of blind spots and things that you don't see coming, or it can be about seclusion or spiritual related matters. And it's also directly connected to your fifth house of creativity, self-expression, and romance. So as these two conjunct in your sixth house, I look at this and go, all right, this is about revising your daily habits in the sixth house. Maybe it's going to be about secrets that can be affecting your identity or your home life or your health. I do predict that work romance or work or health revelations can kind of take place. And there can be creative blocks that clear through taking some rest, okay? So much needed time off. This is a good time, I think, to really consider detoxing the mind or the body. This is also a good time to revisit your routines and really ask yourself what is and is not healthy for you, both in relationships, but also in your work or life habits. And making a little bit more time for a hobby or some kind of creative project might be just what the doctor ordered to get you out of this kind of rigid mindset when it comes to your work or your health. This is also a really good time, I think, to be mindful of communication with people at work, because the 12th house does represent enemies. So it can mean that there are people at work that you thought that you were kind of cool with that's kind of coming out, and you're like, whoa, okay, actually maybe that person and I are not tight. And also watch for the complications or the drama that can happen with interoffice work relationships or work, kind of crushes. There can be some stuff that can kind of come up there as well. Although you're coming back to Venus. So that can mean that you're finally dealing with an emotional issue and you're kind of working it out through better health and habits. It can be very telling in regards to some dramatic turning points when it comes to your job as well. There could be some changes that's kind of going on at work, where you're working, how you're working, or your relationship maybe with a woman at work. But definitely detox your mind and body this week and focus on revisiting some of those routines and, try to be compassionate with yourself. Good luck. For Cancer and Cancer rising, you guys are going to experience Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in Scorpio in your natal fifth house. I do think that the water signs are going to navigate this a little bit better. I do think that what's working in your favor is that it is trining Jupiter in your sign. So if we break this down, obviously Mercury is tied to the third house of communication, mind, media, short distance travel, moving, and siblings. It's also about where you've kind of felt in the dark when it comes to some communication or conversations. So I've heard from several Cancer risings, it's been some people who are like, I was talking to somebody and then they disappeared, or my ex is back and they're following my social media. That's very Mercury is kind of tied to the 12th house. While Venus, on the other hand, represents home, family, and the past, it's also directly tied to the 11th house of friends, goals, and allies. So when we put that together and we see Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in your fifth house, this basically means that this is the house of romance and creativity. So there could be secret crushes. There could be some kind of romantic breakthrough or conversations that's giving you clarity on where you stand in a relationship or a potential relationship. Lots of artistic passion, and obviously family talks that can heal old wounds and help heal things from childhood or any issues regarding your inner child or your heart space. I do predict for Cancer risings that you guys can find that there could be faded romantic sparks happening now, joyful home expression, and having a lot of fun with family. This is also a time to really play and create, and maybe find your groove when it comes to creating and expressing again, and definitely nurturing your inner child right now and realizing that this is a part of the process of you healing, is just learning to be present and enjoying your time with other people. Cancer, I hope it's a good one for you guys, especially like looking at Venus trining Saturn. I mean, it can mean that because you're opening your heart up again, you're learning a lot about, what you believe in, especially when it comes to travel, education, even potential relationships that can be kind of happening at a distance. Good luck. For my Leos and Leo risings, you guys are going to be experiencing Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in Scorpio taking place in your natal 4th house. Similar to, Taurus and also Aquarius, if you happen to be in the latter degrees of Leo or Leo rising, you may be feeling some of the squares for this. So it may be feeling like there's a little bit more pressure. But Leo, go back to the new moon in Scorpio because this is happening kind of in similar degrees this week. We're going to see where that new moon was. And you're ruled by the sun. Now, Mercury rules your second house of personal values, money, and resources, and your 11th house of goals, dreams, and friends. Versus Venus, which is tied to the 3rd house of the mind and communication, and the 10th house of career. So watching Mercury retrograde back through your 4th house of home and family, coming into conjunction with Venus, if we put all that together, it basically means that there can be deep family conversations that are taking place, or a deep reevaluation or reassessment of what do I want? What do I hold on to? Am I staying here? Do I value this home? Do I value these things? And it's also really about having conversations that's going to really dramatically reshape your security and your values. I do predict for some Leos and Leo risings, this is like an emotional home makeover, opportunities for ancestral healing, opportunities for, rearranging your home, redecorating your home, clearing things out, maybe even, selling stuff connected to the home and making some money, and maybe detaching and allowing yourself to really reevaluate on the bigger plan of what it comes to your home and your living situation. And some of you guys might be downsizing or decluttering. I would also say this can be a good time to really focus on decorating and creating sacred spaces in your home. Talking roots with loved ones and what your long-term plans are in terms of where you may potentially be living, and embracing whatever this change is happening either emotionally or when it comes to your home and family. Good luck. I hope it's a good one for you guys. All right, we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys are going to experience Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in Scorpio. Very personal for you, Virgo, as obviously Mercury rules your chart. So it might represent you actually reconnecting, communicating, changing direction with travel or moving or reevaluating a contract of some kind. Now, Mercury doesn't just rule you, it also rules your 10th house of career and reputation. While Venus represents your money, values, and resources, along with travel and your belief system. So to watch Mercury retrograde through your 3rd house, where you're kind of keeping an open mind or maybe seeing some changes in how you communicate with family, making a change with a vehicle, or maybe reassessing a contract, that conjunction with Venus means that there can be some intense conversations that you're having with neighbors, maybe that you're having with siblings. Maybe it can mean that you're going back and forth with exes. It can mean that for some of you guys because it is trining Jupiter. It could also mean for others that there is there's a mindset shift that's going to happen when it comes to your worth. Now, you may see some bumps in the road when it comes to negotiating any business-related themes or launching websites or businesses. I would say it can be, a little turbulent there. But I do predict that you'll have some revealing conversations taking place in this next week. That's really eye-opening. And maybe some of you guys will also have some breakthroughs in writing or in media or of your frame of mind. I've talked to some Virgo risings this week who are like, I read this book on reincarnation or life after death, or I finally figured out, something clicked for me with reading tarot or learning astrology. So it can be these very kind of esoteric, metaphysical kind of topics. And I would say, stay open to your intuition, speak your truth, try to do it gently. And if you're open to anything connecting to learning about divination or, like reincarnation or life after death, watching videos, reading books, listening to that stuff can be really beneficial and really help you kind of shift your mindset. I hope it's a good one for you guys. For my Libras and Libra risings, you guys are going to experience Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in the 2nd house of Scorpio. Really important because Venus rules you, Libra. So with Mercury coming retrograde into conjunction with Venus, be careful. Obviously, Venus doesn't just rule you. It also rules your 8th house of intimacy, joint assets, joint money, secrets, intimacy, taxes. And Mercury is connected to the 12th house of losses, unexpected themes, blind spots, dreams, intuition, and also the 9th house of travel, education, and your beliefs. Well, obviously, Libra, it's a retrograde conjunct your chart ruler in the second house. So there I have two ways of looking at this. One is, the themes can be about transforming your worth through shared resources and changes in your beliefs. It can also mean some of you guys who have experienced a loss, okay? So if you lost money, if you feel lost without a ancestor or a relative, if you lost a item, right? It can now be found. It can come back to you. It can also mean that if things have been rocky in the self-esteem department, or if it's been rocky in regards to your diet, what you've been eating, or even financially, things can turn around because it's coming back to you. Your intuition should be strong. You guys will also find that this is really about transforming your self-worth when it comes to being vulnerable and being open about what it is that you value with other people. I predict that there can be major financial boosts. There can be intimacy boosts that can happen here as well. Maybe you finally change your mind and you decide that you're going to invest in a luxury product. I would say be careful buying it during this date because you might change your mind. This is about reassessing what you do have and what you're willing to release, and then releasing things so you have more spending power for the future. And what's positive about this, at least for you, Libra, is that, it's still trining Jupiter. Venus is coming into a trine with Jupiter. So it looks like the way that you're looking at your spending, or the way that you're looking at what you're eating, or even your personal style, or how you're making money is going to change. So it's maybe a little bit easier to navigate that Mercury conjunction because it's trining Saturn and you're more health and organization focused, and it's also trining Jupiter, which is good for your career. Watch for financial negotiations happening here as well, Libra. And I would say it's all about reassessing and maybe taking a beat and being careful because there could be more money that could be lost or burned if you're reacting too quickly. Good luck. Scorpio and Scorpio rising. This is interesting for you guys. Obviously, Mercury's retrograde is in your sign, right? And it's coming into conjunction with Venus in Scorpio in your sign. So the first house is really about you, your actions, your body, your appearance, your identity. While Mercury is tied to your goals and your friendships, and it's also tied to your joint finances and intimacy, we've got Venus that's tied to what's hidden in your subconscious, and also the 7th house of relationships and partnerships. So this is very unique for Scorpio. I think obviously if we put the themes of those houses together and then we put the conjunction in your first house, it basically means that this is all about a personal transformation. And this personal transformation is coming through love, identity, secrets. I think you're going to have a much more magnetic aura having your 7th house and your 8th house ruler in your first house. So you can attract people and bring people right in. It can mean that there is some kind of glow up that's happening from within, and that you could be a lot more passionate when it comes to your self-reinvention. Venus does rule relationships, and Mercury obviously can be about like sex appeal. So there can be a sense of you attracting people, bringing people in how you communicate and how you carry yourself and your energy. And throughout this Mercury retrograde, I think for a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings, it's been how can I communicate differently so I can get on better terms or attract a partner or be in a better relationship or bring in more clients. And I want to remind you guys that this is all ruled by Pluto and it's all ruled by Mars. So with Pluto in your 4th house, as you're feeling very passionate to make some changes on the home front. With Mars being the other dispositor or ruler of this, it's in the 2nd house of self-esteem, money, and values. These planets have been in opposition to Uranus. So there's been a lot of, I have financial goals, I have home goals, but you know what, I'm having some relational issues, or maybe there's some stress or there's some pressure that's going on. And this retrograde means that you're trying to communicate and interact with people from a more confident perspective, from a much more powerful perspective, and in a way that you can also keep the peace with partners. So Scorpio, watch for the glow up. I also think that be careful with making any cosmetic changes to your appearance, or this is not a good time for surgery or anything like that. And this is about passionate reinvention and really embracing vulnerability and maybe feeling a little bit more sexy and seductive, but also being raw, being open, being vulnerable, because that's what's really going to attract and bring people in. Good luck. All right, Sagittarius and Sagittarius risings. You guys are going to experience Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus taking place in Scorpio in your natal 12th house. Now, for you guys, obviously, Mercury's been retrograde in your sign. Right now it's back in Scorpio. But I want to preface that by saying for Mercury to go from your sign to the 12th house, there's something clearly changing about relationships. And some of you guys are either taking a break, you're on the fritz, maybe you're trying to figure out why you're single, maybe you're going into therapy, maybe there's been taking a break from relationships and work. I know there's a lot of moving parts for Sagittarius right now. But now it's in Scorpio. So that means that when it comes to relationships and your career, you're being faced with the fact that there's going to be some changes here. And that can mean that certain jobs are coming to an end, certain relationships are coming to an end. It can also mean that you're just willingly taking a step back and taking a break before you make any big moves. And then obviously Venus is connected to your goals and your friends. It's also connected to your health and your habits. So when we look at Mercury retrograde in the 12th, conjunct Venus for my Sag and Sag risings, this is basically some subconscious closure that's going on with values, with relationships, with friends, with career. And some of you guys feel like you're just kind of in hermit mode and you're just kind of hiding out. I do think that one thing I would watch for Sag risings is hidden relationship reviews. Yes, you can have spiritual healing. You can go to a retreat. You can spend time at a spa. You can do a lot of soul healing, you know, whether you want to work with a therapist, work with a healer, you're doing past life regression, you're meditating. These things are great. But I'm going to be honest here. You know, Mercury, when it's conjunct Venus, especially for you guys in the 12th, it could mean that there is something that's being revealed to you that's showing you whether or not a relationship is good for you, whether or not it is healthy. It can also be showing you where there can be some self-sabotage that's going on. And if there's been some issues happening where you're afraid to put yourself out there, or you're keeping certain things from a partner, or maybe where you've been putting up with certain things in relationships and like the effects that it's had on you. The positive, because I do want to focus on the positive, is that this conjunction is still trining Jupiter in your 8th. Jupiter's hidden, so you're going through a lot of emotional changes, but it means that whatever is kind of breaking down or falling away or isn't working, it needs to be honored right now because it's going to help you through that process of renewal. It can also mean that there's karmic love closure going on, right? And there can be dream insights that are coming up to show you what direction to go in a relationship or even in your career. I really recommend meditating. I think this is also about forgiving the past, and this is also about resting. And even though Sag season has started, I don't think a lot of you guys are really going to feel like you've got the full capabilities of really going full steam ahead still for a couple more weeks, and at least until we're getting into Sagittarius season. In spite of that, this week, Mars is in your 1st house and it's squaring the north and the south node. And it's saying, look, you still don't know what's going to happen with a relationship or a job situation. You still don't feel 100%, but you have to get your guys' butts up and you have to start getting moving. Mars in the 1st house wants you to move, okay? So what does it want you to do? Focus on the changes and the actions you can take now to prioritize your happiness, to ensure that you are going to feel fulfilled. Don't get too caught up on what's ending or what didn't work or what's happened. And also, don't get in your own way, because the 12th house can be about that hidden kind of self-sabotaging behavior. Get moving, start prioritizing doing things every day that's going to make you happy. It's going to help you kind of really focus on what's best for you. It's also going to improve your day-to-day habits. All right, so for my Capricorns and Capricorn risings, you guys are going to do the Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in Scorpio in the 11th. Obviously, the 11th house is more about your friendships, your goals, parties, networking opportunities. And Mercury is connecting to travel, your beliefs, education, and legal matters. It's also tied to health, daily routines, and work. And Venus is going to be about your career, but it's also going to be about opportunities for creativity, self-expression, and relationships. So in a nutshell, Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in the 11th is like you go to a party, you reconnect with somebody you haven't seen in a long time, and it's like a really exciting, eye-opening kind of conversation, and you can reconnect in a way that you haven't some time. It is trining Saturn, which is your chart ruler in the 3rd, so it means you're waiting for some people to reconnect with you, follow up, respond to your RSVP, kind of walk up to you and talk to you at a social gathering. I also think that some of the trines that you're seeing to Jupiter is really great for relationship opportunities as well, Capricorn. So putting that Mercury-Venus conjunction together in your 11th house with Mercury being retrograde is really deep social networking reconnections. So it might mean you're getting back on social media after hiatus. It might mean that you're seeing people after you're not seeing them for a while. Maybe you're having, an intimate, friends dinner with people that you haven't seen in a bit and you're reconnecting. And this is about the right people coming back to you at the right time. This is about fated alliances and also maybe, passionate conversations that you have with friends. It can mean that you're reconnecting with people who you haven't seen in a while and suddenly they're single or they're available or they're sharing with you intimate details about what's changed in their love life, or maybe you're seeing a friend in a different light. And it can potentially be a romantic connection because Venus rules your fifth. But I would just watch for, I think, networking intuitively. This is also about sharing your dreams with other people. And this is about hearing what other people have to say and inspiring individuals coming in that can offer you some sort of support. That can be when it comes to your health, your habits, and also even job networking opportunities as well. Let me know what happens, Capricorn. I like some of the aspects here too. Obviously Saturn and also Jupiter. Some friends might be trying to play matchmaker. All right, for Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you guys are going to experience Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in the 10th house of Scorpio. If you happen to be around, let's say 20 to 25 degrees of Aquarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this is squaring you, and it is in a superior square. So you're definitely feeling the pressure with all the work changes, the relational changes, the stuff that's going on with maybe your career, your bosses, and that's because it's squaring you and you're feeling the pressure of that. You've also been feeling the pressure with the oppositions to Uranus and Taurus. So how are you guys doing? Now, obviously your 10th house is your career, your status, but it's also your relationship with bosses. It can be your public reputation or what you do out in the world. Venus is going to rule your home and your family. It's also connected to your 9th house of legal matters, travel, and your beliefs, while Mercury is tied to your 8th house of joint finances, money owed, obviously karmic connections, and vulnerability. It's also tied to your 5th house of children, romance, taking chances, and anything that deals with self-expression. So when we put Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in your 10th house, what this basically means for you guys is that there is something changing or transforming about your public image. And this is also connected to secret conversations, secret alliances, passion that's also coming up in some of your work projects. And I do predict for some of you guys that you're going to see career boosts, and this is about being vulnerable with other people at work. It can be really powerful for professional talks and relationships or negotiations. And this is really about owning your own depth at work. Maybe you're setting ambitious, kind of goals. Maybe with some of the reworking that's been happening in your career zone, it's helping you feel more financially secure and kind of plan for the future. I also think it's about changes that's going on with the groups of people that you're working with, your schedule, or even the location, because it's also trining Jupiter. The fact that it's trining Saturn, your traditional ruler, does mean that some of the changes that are happening in terms of your professional relationships are needing to happen to secure your financial kind of bottom line. But in spite of that, some of the oppositions to Uranus brings up some emotional friction and some kind of concerns about what's changing at work. How does this impact what's going on with me at home? If you are in a situation where you're working is going to dictate where you're living or vice versa, there can definitely be some kind of unexpected situations that can definitely happen throughout this next month. I would say for right now, just really focus on trying to nurture certain relationships at work, trying to negotiate and kind of be willing to embrace change. And whether that's in the position that you're in, your career field, maybe your title, all of those things are kind of up for being changed right now. And that can also mean that there's going to be some financial changes that are going to come with that because of the connection to your 8th house. So take risks, be willing to put yourself out there creatively and find ways to navigate some of these changes in a way that could actually bring you, I think, a little bit more joy. Good luck. And for my Pisces and Pisces risings, what's going on, guys? You're going to be experiencing the Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in the 9th. Pisces, pros and cons. I think there's a lot more pros than cons, especially considering this is trining Saturn and to some extent Neptune in your sign. It's a wide trine to Neptune, but the Saturn is about you getting, I think, a solid kind of perspective on your personal goals and how that's going to be shifting what you're learning, what you're believing in, where you're traveling. And Venus is obviously the ruler of communication and short distance travel or siblings. It's also about secrets and kind of karmic relationship themes and joint finances. And Mercury is ruled or connected to the South Node and Virgo in the 7th house of relationships, so partners from the past or partnership clearing. It's also directly tied to the 4th house, which deals with home and family relationships. So I like that it's not only trining Saturn, but it's also trining Jupiter, your chart ruler. So there's something really powerful that's really shifting about your relationship with a teacher, a mentor, maybe a change with travel plans, a change with education plans, maybe some legal situations that are going on for some Pisces and Pisces risings. And this is really tying together the themes of deep belief shifts. And that could be about relationships. That could be about some secrets coming out about love affairs and joint relationships or financial relationships. This can be bringing up opportunities for a spiritual journey of some kind. And faded, I think, travel or learning opportunities, and definitely feeling a little bit more passionate and wise. This would be a good time to maybe consider returning to your studies or reviewing some of your studies or reconnecting with a teacher or a mentor. Watch for traveling and reconnecting with people from the past or like meeting foreigners that could be soulmates. This could also be a transit that's going to be about some kind of shifts in your belief system and in general. And I would say studying occult topics can be really beneficial now. Expanding your horizons, especially emotionally, is a huge theme. And all of these trines happening to Jupiter is, doing things that you enjoy that make you happy, like being on the pursuit of chasing happiness. Even if that means you have to make some, changes when it comes to your relationships in the process. I think some of you guys are changing the way that you look at relationships and what you've learned from some of the shakeouts with relationships recently. All right, guys. Well, this is going to be a week for the books, obviously. So I'm excited to hear how this manifests for you guys. Thank you so much for being here, obviously, and listening to my Sunday sermon. I appreciate it. I'm here every week. You guys can catch me here Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. It really means the world to me to have you guys liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. It helps the channel grow and helps me get closer to 50,000 subscribers. Watch for these unexpected things, which I think are actually blessings in disguise this week. And I'm wishing you guys a beautiful Thanksgiving if you guys celebrate here in the States over the holiday. I hope you guys have lots of laughter and hopefully not too much pie. But enjoy this week, and I will catch you back here throughout the week. So make sure you're subscribed. Leave those comments below, and I will see you all here very soon. Take care.